Tonali to Manchester United, the links seem to be quite relentless. We're also going to be looking at stories about Matheus Fernandes. Is a big going to go in? Edison looks like it's going to be the first deal of the transfer window. And it looks a bit like Manchester United have got a decision to make regarding Tonali. And there's a few updates that are coming out from Newcastle as well. Alan Shearer talking and being reported in local press as well on this story. And we did discuss this last night as well. Is that what should Manchester United's strategy be? Is it going to be prioritising getting players in before the World Cup? Should Manchester United be holding out to try and get a better option? And do people look at Tonali as what he's doing at Newcastle United? Looking at the situation at Newcastle United, a lot of people that like Tonali back when he was playing back in Italy will probably say, forget what he's doing at Newcastle, look at what the player's capable of doing in a different team, a different setup. And I think that's what Manchester United are actually looking at. I do see information out there as well regarding Tchouaméni. And my stance on Tchouaméni is going to be, I think Tchouaméni feels like a very unrealistic prospect. I think Tchouaméni is a quality player, but he doesn't want to leave Real Madrid. And I don't see Mourinho going to Real Madrid and forcing out one of their best players. So I appreciate Tchouaméni as a football player. I feel a bit like Fabrizio now saying this, that this is a difficult deal. I think it's like close to impossible unless Real Madrid actually say Tchouaméni, we don't want you at the club. Even with that stance, it's still going to be quite expensive. The salary is going to be expensive. The transfer fee would be big. I think it's the most expensive deal Manchester United would do. If you consider salary plus transfer fee, I think Tchouaméni is the most expensive out of these three players. But I've got a poll running in the comments just to get your opinion. Like, what do you think Manchester United are going to end up with? Because if you're looking at Elliot Anderson, according to actually a lot of sources, it's like he's pretty much sitting at Manchester City's ground waiting to sign as soon as the transfer window opens. So it looks a bit like that's off the table, even though there's a lot of speculation about Manchester City. It looks like too many doesn't want to leave Real Madrid, so I can't see how that happens. Like I don't see a player forcing his way out of Real Madrid. I mean, he doesn't even want to leave, so I think it's going to be difficult for him to be leaving. Even if you're going to, if no, even if Real Madrid buy more midfielders, I don't see why you move too many on. So that's kind of my stance with those. And then you look at it and think, what's the most likely situation for Manchester United now? Is it to go for Tonali because is Tonali essentially like a backup player? It sounds ridiculous because he's quite expensive. And I think there's definitely a lot of people maybe being a bit unfair on Tonali and judging Tonali by the way that Newcastle United play. And I was talking last night with a few guests, and some of the people, we actually spoke off screen as well for like another hour about certain players. And a lot of it is like, if Tonali joined Manchester United, where would Tonali be expected to do his work on the pitch in most games? If you're looking at him on the pitch with Menu, who would be the most defensive? Who would be the most attacking? What attributes has Tonali got? Would you be looking at Edison plus Tonali? How does that work? And Manchester United would have been thinking about all these different options. And there's no doubt that I've said numerous times that Eddie Anderson for me would be the best all-round option. But if you look at what he can do, a lot of people think that Tonali's mediocre at a lot of things. I think that's a little bit unfair. I think Tonali is being asked to do things by um, Eddie Howe that maybe don't make him look the most effective. The Newcastle this season, they have Bruno Guimaraes missing games. They have Joe Linton missing games. They have, you also have effectively the forward players also not always playing in the preferred positions. And I think that if Tonali joined Arsenal, I think we'd see a player that's suddenly being talked about as being like close to world class. I think if you drop him in an effective team, and I think Manchester United are trying to do that. I think we're trying to build around certain players. Like Bruno Fernandes is still going to be leading the attack. We're still going to have Menu in the midfield, I think, in most games, unless something dramatic happens with our transfers. And I think we're going to see Tonali as a first team player if he joins Manchester United alongside Menu. So I think that would be the partnership. But I don't think you can really look at what he's done at Newcastle this season and then say, right, this is how he's going to play at Manchester United. It's a different club, different ideas. So again, there's going to be a lot of different options in the chat. So let's go for a few of the comments as well. Big up to you, Vicky. Thank you so much for co-hosting last night as well. I was about to write your message this morning, but it just took a long time to kind of get these pictures loaded. But no, thanks so much for last night, Vicky. And say this is the transfer window, says Yardi. So from now on in the chat, I'll go for some comments. So if you posted some comments early on, if you can repost it, I'll try and go for it as well. So Perez said this is his third or fourth sit-down interview last night, and too many is not being sold. I mean, when people keep saying, I see a lot of thumbnails discussing about too many, and to be honest, like too many it's a bit like Manchester United and Ryan Giggs. There are so many stories that Inter Milan wanted Ryan Giggs. Ryan Giggs was never for sale. So for me, it feels like that if I was a Real Madrid fan, I'd just be thinking, like too many just needs to like also be next in that meeting and just say, look, I'm not going to leave the club because no, it is ridiculous. I think too many's quality, and it's nice to talk about him, but we have to be realistic and say he doesn't want to leave. I don't think Real Madrid want to sell him. So it's like Elliot Anderson. At some point, Manchester United need to make a decision. Do they keep holding on to this small hope that Anderson is going to go? Actually, I think I'll join Manchester United, or do we look at Tonali and go, he's available, we can buy him? Because it feels a bit like that some of this news, I think it's almost like people look at Tonali as a low quality backup, whereas I think that's a bit unfair. And if Tonali joined Manchester United, I'm pretty sure that we would see a different quality player to what we've seen at Newcastle United. That's all I'm saying. That different players in different teams are going to look less effective or more effective according to how the manager wants to play. And if you remember previous Manchester United managers, I won't mention them too much, but previous Manchester United managers, we've had them in charge of our club, and it's made a lot of the fan base think that Koemani should be sold for quite a small transfer fee. It's made people think that Casemiro is not effective in any game at all, and we know that's not the case. And I think even like Rasmus Højlund looked a lot better under one manager than another. So I think having a different manager with a different idea, there's no way that Manchester United want to play the way Newcastle play this season. I think it's almost like I know people like the stats and people love the data, but I think it's very difficult to look at that data and go, actually, what's going to happen if he joins Manchester United? I think Tonali is capable of playing as a six. Like he could do that. You know, if that was his role, I think his numbers in those sort of metrics would improve if that was his focus. I think if Tonali was going to be playing further forward and that was more of a focus, I think we've seen those numbers go up as well. So I think we have to like maybe differentiate the player from the stats and just think, all right, just watch the games, see what he's capable of. I would say the same for Kobe Manu. If you drop Kobe Manu into Manchester United's team in front of the back four, I think we've got a player that could almost be perfect in that position. And if you want to see evidence of that, watch highlights of Kobe Manu playing against Liverpool. He receives the ball, he's comfortable in possession. He does for me very similar to what Roy Keane does, incredible pass selection, incredible short passing game, unflustered, unfazed. I don't see Koemenu losing the ball, and that's something that he's had from the age of 18 as well. So I think Koemenu could be an ideal player to play in that position, but also because he's a good player, when he goes forward, he can do those other bits as well. So I think there's a few players now that are maybe comfortable in multiple positions, and it does create a lot of debate because people look at Kobe Mainoo and say, oh, Kobe Mainoo should be a 10, Kobe Mainoo's an 8, Kobe Mainoo could play as a 6. I think that just shows that he can play anywhere in midfield. And I think the same could be said of someone like Tonali. I think you can drop Tonali as a 6, as an 8, and you can play him in those positions. And it all depends on what do Manchester United need in a given situation, what do Manchester United need in a certain game. Um, and big up to people in the chat saying, and like Spirit Bodies as well. No, welcome Tunku to the chat. Says, if you had a choice, Wharton plus Fernandez and Edison, say Garner's not for sale. I think Garner's probably got, has he re signed a contract at Everton? But I think, yeah, you're looking at some of these players, they're not all going to be for sale, are they? But Wharton looks like he's Liverpool bound. I'd be also saying that I think Wharton was definitely up there. And the only question mark I had over Adam Wharton was not the quality of the player. It was like the few niggling injuries, and I'm kind of a bit worried about signing players that have got injury issues. And we've seen what's happened with De Ligt. That obviously there's a big question mark over when he's going to come back, and that does put another kind of strain on the defensive side of our team. But no, I think James Garner as well was one that effectively once we sold James Garner away like too cheaply, that was it. We're not going to get him back. So really, yeah, really not great, is it? So did I see the Brazil game last night? No, I didn't see the Brazil game last night actually. I think it's probably streaming at the time, unless it's in the middle of the night, in which case no. So Thiago and Ryan made us understand how a player can look when you play with better players, and that's what I'm thinking as well. That I do like Thiago, and I think you see a good player already. But there's some players that will step up. I think sometimes it depends on what's a player been asked to do. Like if they've been, there are some players like say for instance Unai at Everton. I always think that he's a better player than you see at Everton because I think he can go forward, he can attack more, but that's not how David Moyes plays. So I think it's very difficult to look at the players where they're currently playing. And I think that's why Tonali gets a bit of stick because Newcastle have not been great this season. But a lot of people that like Tonali, this goes beyond like Newcastle. So this goes back several years, and they see a player that's like young coming up through Italy as a player that can technically play any position. So I'm not too concerned. So I'm not really worried. Good morning to you, Clive, as well. I hope you're having a good day. Also, big up to Rob, Always United in the chat. So yeah, Thiago is going to be quite expensive, but if we had a discussion about Thiago a year ago, we'd probably be put off by his injury record. So there's a lot of things going on with this one. Um, so we will end up with Belieber and Edison. I suppose the question is going to be, and this is what Alan Shearer was talking about, and this is kind of like one of the main articles I saw this morning, is that it seems that with Newcastle, and this seems to be something in terms of when you're looking at the players leaving the club it does seem that Newcastle are trying to avoid a situation like last season with Isak. If a player wants to leave the club, Newcastle will not stand in their way. And this started with Gordon. I suppose it's probably relevant to Lewis Hall as well. If Lewis Hall wants to go, then they will look at trying to get obviously a big transfer fee for him, maybe 60 plus million. So we could be looking at a lot of money if Lewis Hall leaves. And with Tonali, most people have been putting the price point probably quite high, like at least 80 million, or maybe if Gordon goes for 70 million, I think Tonali's a better football player than Gordon. I think he's a more effective football player on the pitch in his position as well. So I'd be thinking that if Man United get this deal done, it's going to cost quite a lot of money. I don't think it's going to cost 100 million. So it's going to be somewhere in that range between 80 with some add-ons, I think, something like that. But if Man United do this deal, I think it's going to come down to definitely like, do Manchester United want to spend this much money on one football player? There's a lot of options out there. I think they would definitely be prepared to spend, say, maybe, I don't know how much they'd value Anderson at. I know 125 is too much. And I think Man City also think that's too much. And the Declan Rice deal has been used as kind of like a benchmark. But I don't, to be honest, I think Anderson's very good. I think Declan Rice might have been putting in better performances when he was captain of West Ham. So it's for me the price should be maybe it's maybe comparable, but maybe you could put some add-ons in there, like significant add-ons, and it depends what Anderson achieves in the next couple of years to kind of determine his price. So I think the Anderson deal, that I do think it's worth getting the best players possible, but when you start talking about over 100 million, 120 million, I start look. I don't know. It's just so much money, isn't it? So would people be happy if Manchester United meet the valuation of Newcastle? We're talking probably talking at least 80 million. So it's like 80, 85, 90 million. And I think that's the rumour. And this is pretty much what Alan Shearer was saying that Newcastle United will look at this deal and say, can we get enough money from this deal that we can then go into the transfer market and buy a player that I don't think they can buy a player as good as Tonali for like half the money, but maybe they could look at buying a player that in maybe 12, 18 months, 2 years becomes as effective as Tonali, and that does give them that the leverage to actually buy maybe two players. So maybe they could, maybe they could get 90 million for Tonali, and maybe they could spend like 50 million pounds and 40 million pounds on two players, and they could, but they might not be as effective to start with, but it looks like Newcastle. It seems Newcastle's point of view, and this is just from what I've read this morning with Alan Shearer's opinion and other people. We just need to get Anton Deck ready, don't we? Just to get what everyone from Newcastle's view. It seems that what they're looking at here is that if these players want to leave the club, they can go and they want to get deals done relatively quickly, avoid the situation that happened last year with Wissa and overpaying for him, and maybe just get deals done in a smoother, easier way. So I think Newcastle want to get things done effectively in the transfer window. They want to get these deals done quite quickly so then they can also move and get their replacements in. So it's almost a bit like they decided this a month ago. It does seem that Man United, that not Man United, it does seem that Newcastle United have pretty much said, and this has been reported. I think Eddie Howe might have said it in an interview. If a player wants to leave, they can leave. It's just about Man United meeting the valuation. So if Tonali's able to go, I would say for me, it's kind of a difficult one, isn't it? So if these are the options, and if Manchester United have identified that, and it does seem to be the case, if Man United want to sign one of these three players as a statement signing, would you go for Tonali now, or would you hang on and hope that you can get Eddie Anderson? Because let's be realistic, too many is not leaving Real Madrid. Unless something drastic happens, he's not going to leave. And Eddie Anderson, it looks a bit like I don't know what percentage chance you'd give us of getting Anderson, but I certainly wouldn't be putting it as like sort of no 50-50. I think the chance of getting Anderson might come down to if Man City get penalised. So at this point in time, I'm thinking that maybe that if Manchester United think Tonali's going to be effective and Anderson may be slightly more effective, but if Anderson's off the table, I'd be probably thinking maybe we should go for this one as well. So Funchu says, honestly speaking, you've been following Tonali, say from his Brescia days at age 18, which to be honest, I can't really comment on that era because I didn't watch him at that point in time. But I think you're probably in line with what I've heard other people say that I've spoken to off the channel as well. That the people that watched Tonali before, years before he went to the Premier League, were also saying the same sort of thing. So they're saying that technically he'll be incredibly good and say, but you wanted him before he made his Milan move. So people I speak to that are most positive about Tonali, they look at what he did at Milan and they see that's the player they're looking at. So they're forgetting anything he does at Newcastle because that will be instructions from Newcastle's manager. So again, it's a bit like looking at some of the players playing for Arsenal on the week, say on the weekend against Paris Saint-Germain. You can take some of those players out of that club, put them in a different team that is more aggressive, more attacking, and you're going to maybe find those players look more favourable to the eye. So I think what Tonali can do is not necessarily what he's doing at the moment. So I don't think I'm not going to say too much negative about Newcastle, but I don't think Newcastle necessarily get the best out of all their players. It's the same for Man United. Like we have good players at the club. The way we play doesn't always get the best out of every player, and some players will look worse, and it's different players look worse in different systems. I find so. If you're looking at Man United with the last few managers, you can make a case that under some managers, Kobe Mainoo went from looking incredibly good, not getting in the team, then now he's back looking incredibly good. And you could say that certain other players as well look better or worse depending on who's in charge. Because I think recently, obviously, results have improved for Man United. I think we're getting more consistent performances out of most of our players. But you could argue that a year ago, a couple of players actually looked more effective. So you could say Armadillo actually looked a better football player last season than he did the season that's just gone by. But I think a few players will have uh, good years and bad years. But I think the overall trend is we're getting the best out of players recently. And I think honestly, like for me, that speaking as well, like Funchy's saying, I think Man United, the way Tonali would play at United would not represent anything he does at Newcastle. So yeah, I would say Tonali definitely knocked out Valverde. I would wait till after the World Cup. He is a far better as a direct replacement for Casemiro. Okay, that was actually part of my question as well. I kind of I kind of see too many as off the table, but no, your comment is just as relevant as waiting for Anderson. So maybe this should be the decision. Would you go for would you go for T- Tonali now? Like Tonali is available if you pay the money. And of these three football players on the screen, I don't think Tonali's going to be. Tonali might well be the cheapest if you consider salary and you consider transfer fee. I think too many is the cheapest. So I think Tonali is the cheapest option. I think too many will be the most expensive option. And even though he's got the highest transfer fee, I think his salary would be lower than too many. So I think Elliot Anderson's going to be, somewhere in the middle. But they're all going to be very expensive, and they're all going to be deals which potentially impact how much you can do on the rest of the team. So I don't think anyone's sitting here thinking Man United, let's drop £80 million, £90 million on Tonali. Then let's get Lewis Hall. Then let's get I know another backup striker. Let's get so I think that if you're looking at buying midfield players, for me, Tonali, Anderson, or too many, this is effectively going right. Let's just get the transfer window this season. Let's just make sure that when it finishes, midfield is as good as it possibly can be. and I think that's going to be the priority. So it's really difficult for me to say that if Man United said, "Look, we're going to wait to get Anderson," the only question marks I got is how serious is Arsenal's interest in Tonali? If Arsenal get Tonali and Manchester City get Anderson and too many staying, then realistically, who are we looking at? Are we looking at Alex Scott, Belieber, Angela Stiller? I think it's a bit risky because there's a lot of those deals that Angela Stiller could also be going to Real Madrid. So for me, it would be quite a risk. I don't know. I know D Heck says that you think too many's going to leave. Oh, I don't know. It feels like if too many did leave, I don't think he's going to be leaving that quickly. So a lot of it comes down to Real Madrid's transfer window as well. Um, no, I'd be so I'd be a bit concerned if Man United left it after the World Cup. That's all I'll say. So comments. No, I don't think you finish third in the league and get lucky. I think the league is pretty much merit based. You can argue over a few points here and there, but I don't think you can say that any league positions are obtained by fortune at the moment. You could argue that Arsenal probably benefited from his decisions, but I think Arsenal overall were the most consistent team. So yeah, I don't know. So Jim says people talk like City are going to get sanctions this month, and we will get to know. There's a lot of people saying that. I honestly do not know if anything's going to happen. I think there's a lot of speculation that something's going to be resolved. There's going to be some sort of decision. I don't know. If there is, then just get it decided before the transfer window even opens. Like because Man United do not have to make a decision this rapidly. The transfer window is not open. So no, I think with this one, Jim, that a lot of people are speculating. If it comes from Man City fan channels, I don't know how much information they've got as well. So yeah, I'm not really. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. Um, no, we got third quite easily in the end. But I think in the end we got third locked up with a couple of games to go, didn't we? So it was never really in doubt over the last couple of games. And yeah, please, as Tonky said, don't forget to smash the like if you can. If you're able to share the stream as well, that's a bonus to get to reach other people as well. But also, get your thoughts on what we're talking about here today. Because for me, it's going to be this is kind of a yes no question that I will jump. I have got a poll running to say what do you think is the most likely deal. But this is kind of a yes no question. Should Manchester United sign Tonali or wait for what? If you think we should wait, then presumably that means you think there's a better option out there. So if you think that too many is levels better, and you kind of have to be happy to miss out on Tonali if you wait, because Tonali will be leaving the Newcastle United as far as I can see, and he wants to leave the club. He's been pushing to leave since January. His agent is all over this. I would not be surprised if Arsenal look at him as a significant upgrade on other players. A Declan Rice, Tonali midfield for me would be it would be quite a good building block for Arsenal to retain the Premier League. Arsenal are the only team in the top six at the moment with a stable environment, and that they got the same. Most of the same players will be there. They'll be looking to try and upgrade their team. I think Tonali's an upgrade on Zubimendi, and I think that he would definitely boost their squad. Arsenal are probably going to go for a striker as well. So Arsenal will look at what happened in the Champions League. They do need a bit more threat on the pitch. I think Gyökeres did not do very well in that final. So Arsenal will not be sleeping on this. So I think if Tonali doesn't go to Man United, I think if we wait till after the World Cup, I think Tonali's gone. I think he's off the table. I don't think he can go to Italy because of the money that Newcastle want. But I'd be amazed if Arsenal don't look at him and think, actually, we should get this player in our team. Because I think he would definitely, considering what they've got in the team already, I think you can. I think that allows Declan Rice to go further forward, where he might be more effective and link up the attack more. So I think it would be an upgrade. So I think United can't really sleep on this one. So no, this is definitely fortunate, isn't it, Vicky? This sort of thing, I think Arsenal probably they probably would win the title anyway, but it felt a bit like it was. it was almost kind of engineered. So I would be very surprised if Arsenal are a serious contender next season. That Liverpool, everybody's thinking that Liverpool will suddenly click into gear. We have no idea, do we? Liverpool have not replaced some of the key players in their title-winning teams, and that like Mo Salah's not been replaced. Trent hasn't really been replaced, and they haven't really got the balance right in their squad at the moment. So they signed good players, but at the moment they just don't have things going that well for them as well. So let's go through a few of the comments as well. Yeah, no, my thoughts on Arsenal as well is that I think Arsenal have got half a very good team. It feels a bit like Arsenal have got a George Graham team, and they need like an Arsene Wenger type manager to then add the sprinkle the quality in the forward play. So if I was looking at Arsenal at the moment, I'd say they're more representative of was it when did they last win the league in the 90s early when they won the league very early on? Was it like 1991 or something? I can't remember the exact year now. But if you look at when they won the league in the early 90s, I think the team was quite representative of that one. And it's almost like if you look at Arsenal now, if you can drop like a Thierry Henry and like an Overmars, a Perez, like Bergkamp, if you can drop those kind of like attacking quality players in the front of that team, you've got a really good team. So I'd say the back four at the moment with the goalkeeper is kind of similar in terms of quality with like the Martin Keown, um, and Tony Adams days with like David Seaman behind them. I think they got most of the building blocks in there. And I think for Arsenal, maybe they just dropped the ball in getting Benjamin Sesko. Sorry, in getting not getting Sesko and getting Gyökeres. I think they bought the wrong player. Too many salary. It's like quarter of a million. Tonight it's 120K. Yeah, that's why for me that too many is the most expensive deal. He'd be looking for at least that, maybe a bit more. I think it makes it more expensive. I don't know how much tonight. If tonight's getting paid 120K, obviously he'd be getting more money, and I would be surprised if he's going to get less than 200. But to be honest, if Man United have got a wage structure where a 21-year-old after a couple of years is getting 150, I think Tonali comes in at about that sort of salary. That's still like significantly lower than Casemiro's getting paid, and it still represents at least a big boost for Tonali, but also it makes a lot of sense. Like that would be about market value. If we got him for 200K a week, then considering that that's how much Conor Gallagher gets at Spurs, I don't think it's a bad deal. So no, I think this is definitely it's doable, isn't it? So Gyökeres is a special player, isn't he? I think Gyökeres is, pretty much is straightforward, isn't it? He's a powerful player. If you put him against weak defenders, he's going to bully them. But I think when you put them in a more technical environment, I think Gyökeres struggled. I'm not going to say too much harsh, like it's one game, but I think when you go to the highest level in football, I think some players they look at. I felt he looked a bit out of his depth, if I'm honest. I think Gyökeres struggled, and the ball's not sticking to him. Whether it's like I don't know. Paris Saint-Germain are obviously not going to give him any space or time, and I think Gyökeres struggled in that environment. Like he's good, he was amazing in Portugal, but the level's much higher, and I think that he's actually been okay in the Premier League. But I think in international level, I still say that what I said a year ago. I think Gyökeres is probably a little bit lower down than Ollie Watkins in quality of player. I think Ollie Watkins is a more effective player, will score more goals. Gyökeres might improve, but I think at his age, it kind of is what it is. He's a good player for Arsenal to get a league title in the Premier League. He might have made the difference over the whole season in grinding out some results, but when you're looking at a league competition, Gyökeres against Man United, I can't remember him doing a thing, to be honest. So, he's an effective player in a league situation, but I think in one-off games against top quality, I don't think Gyökeres is going to make the difference. Morning to you, Culture Spot. Yeah, no, I'm not. I tried to say we're like too many. For anyone that's been watching the channel for a significant amount of time, I keep saying we're too many. Like too many is pretty much off the table. I know there's still like this tiny percentage where people are like, yeah, but he did punch Valverde. I'm not even sure he did punch Valverde. I think it was like he pushed him. But anyway, I don't think Real Madrid want too many to leave. If he does leave, then I mean I'm still expecting him to have a very good World Cup, so the price would be so high anyway. I think when you see speculation that you're looking at how much would he cost? I think when people think too many might be quite cheap or a bit cheaper than these players, I think too many might end up being the most expensive. Like transfer fee would be quite high, but also I think the salary would be very high. Why would any football player want to play for Mikel Arteta? His football is dreadful. This is kind of a tricky one, isn't it? I think there's definitely we are talking about this last night as well, and saying what reason do players go to certain clubs? And we are talking about say Rashford wanting to go to Barcelona, but it does apply to any player, doesn't it? Like Tonali, he wants to leave Newcastle. Why does he want to leave Newcastle? And I think most people look at it and go, right, he wants to win trophies. Like Gyökeres, he wanted to play in a better league than Portugal. He'd kind of like he couldn't do much more. If you're scoring 50, 60 goals a season, you can't do a lot more. Why did Harry Kane go to Bayern Munich? It's probably the same reason that Teddy Sheringham went to Manchester United, the same reason that Van Persie went to Man United. Tonali, I think Tonali would want to go to play. If Tonali's going to go to Arsenal, the reason would be that he thinks that over the next couple of seasons, it's a likely destination to win a title, to win something big, rather than like where he is at the moment. If Man United can persuade Tonali to join them instead of Arsenal, because it might come down to like a Man United Arsenal transfer battle. Manchester United's strength would be investing in quality players around Tonali as well, and showing that there is a project there. Because at the moment Arsenal will be ahead of Man United in terms of expectation next season. I think that we could close the gap if we concentrated on the Premier League and made sure that we were putting out a strong team every Premier League match, maybe rotating a bit more in the Champions League, particularly in the group stage. I think there's no reason why we can't be near the top at the start of the season. And if Tonali buys into that project, and you can get a good left back, get some striker cover, I think that United I don't think we're title challenging like there on paper, but I think we could be closer than people realise if we got a decent window. And maybe that's what you need. Like these players will look at getting Sesko and Buemo and Cunha was definitely important last season. And I think it also helps this transfer window where you've already got those players in. So let me go through a few of the comments as well. Yeah, if you got some thoughts on this, it is going to be something that we might find out quite quickly this week that I think United would have to look at doing something. So imagine Edison, Fernandez, say Tonali and Mainu on midfield. Yeah, also Fletcher got called up to international duty this week, so he's going to play for Scotland in the World Cup. So for Fletcher, really good personal milestone, and that's another indication that some of the players coming through our academy might be actually a bit better than the players that have come through recently. So we have been investing quite heavily, and we will keep investing in the academy, and that might be a little bit of icing on the cake. Like if we get some good transfers in our first team, then the academy players will be there with kind of like squad players as well to try and get some minutes. I think cup games are going to be maybe quite important. Hopefully, we haven't seen this because unfortunately, with Michael when Michael Carrick came in, we were knocked out at every cup competition. So we could see him take the cups a bit more seriously than maybe we did last season. And maybe that's going to be an opportunity for people like Fletcher, um, Thwaites, you got Lacey. There's a few players here. I think they're going to be definitely looking at trying to get some of these players involved, particularly like the League Cup, maybe the opportunity in the FA Cup as well, depending on draws. And if we can get Vitek to come back as a backup goalkeeper, I think he could well be like a cup goalkeeper as well. That could be the kind of carrot to get him to come back to Manchester United. So I think there's a lot of interesting things that could happen. I think that one thing we don't talk about too much. I always try to not talk about academy players in terms of being like options to be first team, next season and hype them up a little bit. But I think it's important to say that Man United have been investing in the academy, so it is expected to play a role over the next few years, but it should be quite a minor role. I think players will get opportunities, hopefully, and that's why it's important to take the cups, the domestic cups, seriously, just to give them that platform to show what they can do. Um, I did also hear that maybe JJ Gabriel, Man United want to make sure he stays at the club. I wonder if he's going to get maybe a few games or some sort of assurance he's going to feature in like some competitions to keep him at the club as well, because there will be like Barcelona, my least favorite club at the moment in football, non-Premier League least favorite that is. they might be trying to get him as well. So United will have to look at this factor. So you think I think Arsenal I think Arsenal did what they had to do with the players they had to get over the line, and they would look at going. I think there's no doubt that in my mind that if Arsenal got better quality players, they might play a bit differently. But again, I think people will still criticise Arteta no matter what happens. But if we'd have been in an Arsenal situation this season, we'd have been so positive about Michael Carrick. If Michael Carrick did this next year, if we won the Premier League in a couple of years and got to a final of the Champions League, then I don't think many Man United fans would be complaining too much about the style of play. I think it would just be you got to look at it and say what do Arsenal do next is going to be critical. I think if Arsenal want to win another Premier League title, next season might be their best option because Man City, no one knows. Liverpool, change of manager there. Manchester United definitely, we're kind of halfway through this rebuild. I think we're getting there, but we're still not really there yet. I'm kind of writing off Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea have got a lot of average players they signed. They need to move on, so I'm kind of writing them off. But I think Arsenal should be looking at being. They should be favourites next season based on what they've done in all competitions, and it's up to them to be, having to try and adapt as well. So closest, I think a lot of teams will be a lot better. I think so. I think there's going to be for me. There's so many different things to factor in. Like Man City this season have been a bit average. Will they improve? I think so. I think Liverpool will improve, Arsenal will improve, Manchester United will improve, and Man City will improve. And I think that they're going to be the top four teams. And the only one I can't really see kicking on at the moment is Chelsea. But I think Chelsea can improve, but they still won't be close to those top four. So Arsenal will have to change their style. I think it's exactly like the way that Man United had to adapt in the 90s to like say a different style of football after Van Nistelrooy left. I think it's the same sort of thing with Arsenal that they will have to adapt their style because it became a bit repetitive. And when it becomes repetitive and predictable, teams started working out how to defend against Arsenal. Arsenal's first half of the season was pretty much where they won the league. They built up a decent buffer, and it was maybe like City's inconsistencies kind of killed them off. But it meant that Arsenal had this buffer. Even when Arsenal started dropping points and drawing matches, they never really, they still always had an advantage. So I think this is true. I think the wrestling kind of thing as well that people are talking about, that when this kind of happens, let's be honest about this as well. When this happens, a lot of people watching football like I watched the games of Arsenal this season, and other teams start adopting the same style. It just starts becoming a bit unwatchable from an entertainment perspective. That the brand of football is getting a bit damaged, and I think that rules will be changed somewhat because what happens is when Arsenal got some success early on, everybody else starts crowding the goalkeeper. Everybody else starts doing the same sort of thing. It becomes a bit of a mess to officiate, and I think they need to make a change. It's a little bit like every single major rule change that comes in. It used to be like the tactical fouls of like taking someone out to just get a yellow card. When that became a red card, it just happened a lot less. So I think deliberate foul play in like hacking down someone if you're the last man, that was something that used to just be you could just do that whenever you wanted and take a yellow, and then the next time there's a dangerous attack, someone else can take him out. But making that a red card did mean that it just didn't happen as much. So I think Arsenal's tactics, they can't use the same tactics next season and win the league. That's kind of my thought on this one as well. I'd say Barca are annoying. They really are. We were talking off stream after last night, Rob, and my thoughts on Barcelona are that because the money in football is going up and up and up, and if you think about how much money do you get as prize money in the Champions League, it just goes up and up. And I think Barcelona have just gambled on longer contracts, unrealistic financial management. And I think Barcelona have just got lucky that the prize money in the Champions League, the World Club Cup, just keeps rolling in because they kind of like balancing the books with gambling. They're basically gambling that they're going to make more money in a couple of years' time. So I think they're lucky. They're kind of lucky they're in a league where they always qualify for the Champions League. If Barcelona were in the Premier League and they finished fifth or sixth, I think they'd be in severe financial problems. Like if they miss out on Champions League money, they would massively struggle. But yeah, where they are at the moment, it's not a problem. So you think Liverpool win the league next season? So they've got a manager who knows to get the best out of their players. I think that definitely, I would say for me that Arioli going to Liverpool, it could be really, really good. The only question for that one's going to be is like Liverpool squad. I think it's better than the performances that we got from Slot this season, like a lot better. The question is going to be is how much better can it be at the moment? Because I think get one thing getting Isak and one thing getting Verts, and they're very good players, and they should be the team should be playing better, but they will miss Mo Salah. Like let's be honest, Mo Salah was a massive problem for most teams. He was a world class player for a number of years, key player. Also, Alisson missing more games, and Van Dijk getting worse. The difference between Liverpool getting over the line and struggling to get there was definitely signing Van Dijk and getting Alisson. And I think with those two players on the way down, it just happens based on like age and injuries for Alisson as well. I think that to get those players replaced is so difficult, and I think that's the issue Liverpool have got. They've not replaced some of the key players. They haven't got a goalkeeper that's as good as Alisson was a few years ago. They haven't got a defender that's as good as Van Dijk was a few years ago, and they haven't got a Mo Salah replacement. So I think Liverpool are definitely going to be up there, but I don't think they're definitely. I think it'll be close. It feels a bit like yeah, saying it's like an end of an era for Liverpool. I think Liverpool are somewhat in a rebuild as well, so I think it's difficult to say the favourites. I think Areola will get the best out of the squad in the same way that I think Michael Carrick will get the best out of Manchester United. But I couldn't say for me on paper. I don't think Liverpool have got a team that's as good as they had when they were winning the league under Klopp, for instance. I think it's difficult. And one to you, Randy. So for people that just tuned in, we have been talking like pretty generally about midfielders, about what's going to happen. Hopefully this week we're going to see some movement. I'd be very surprised actually if we don't find out like an Edison Price. I was saying yesterday that according to Atalanta, Manchester United, I think people are just expecting the deal to be done quicker. And I was saying that I think the reason why this didn't happen was Atalanta were internally replacing the sporting director. So I think now that's been in place for a couple of days. I think it's literally probably about payment structure. I think this is what it is. And for people talking about the spend of Manchester United and how much we're going to spend, etc., since March, it's not really been talked about too much. But since March, Manchester United have apparently repaid about £100 million in terms of like borrowing for transfers. So we still run quite a big transfer deficit in terms of how much money we owe and how much money we've borrowed. But we did pay back 100 million. So I think in terms of like January, we didn't do any deals, which was frustrating. But I think behind the scenes, quietly, we've been kind of sorting ourselves out a bit more financially. So in terms of how much we can spend, I think it might surprise people overall the budget. I think it's going to be a bit bigger than people realize. But Man United will certainly downplay that as well. It's like I wouldn't go into like a market in like Marrakesh bragging about how much money I got. You have to like make sure that Man United will say the same thing every single year. They'll try and downplay how much money we got, and then we'll probably spend a decent amount of money. So I wouldn't worry too much about how much money we got to spend. I think we'd have enough money overall. I say Liverpool with Wharton in the midfield alongside Verts, Szoboszlai. It is good, isn't it? That to be honest, like you could make an argument maybe that when Chelsea had Enzo and Caicedo, they had probably one of the best midfields in the Premier League. I think the difference is going to be that at the moment, do Liverpool have the best defence? I don't think they do, and that's something that I think their defence has aged a bit. I don't think they replaced Trent either, really. I think Kirkes hasn't worked out quite as well, and Frimpong hasn't worked out quite as well. So they're going through transition as well. I think Liverpool have got some aspects of the team that are very good, but every team's got some weaknesses. Now, Man City need to rebuild midfield. I don't think Donnarumma is as good as Lamans. I don't think that the defensive situation at Man City is as good as it used to be. So there's a lot of teams got different problems, haven't they? Like Man United have probably got the best attacking midfielder in the league. They've got the best chance creator in Bruno Fernandes. Man City got the best striker. Arsenal got the best probably centre back pairings. And goalkeeper wise, I think they're all fairly similar. So every team's got different strengths. I think like with Liverpool, they've obviously got strength in midfield and they've got generally pretty high quality squad overall. So it's kind of opened up, isn't it? I would say that maybe like with Arsenal, say Liverpool, Man City, it could be the first time for a year, like a couple of years or a few years, where there's going to be generally quite a lot of competition at the top. I think the top three or four teams might be quite close for a lot of the season. So I don't see any sort of domination. I'll say that, okay, that I don't see a team actually being able to dominate the Premier League in the next couple of years. Maybe a few years ago, you saw Man City pretty much, yeah, dominating the league like we used to do. I don't see Liverpool been able to dominate. I don't see Arsenal. The only thing I could see is that I think if Arsenal got transfers right and Liverpool messed up, you could see that there's a slight advantage one way or the other. So I think at the moment, my guess would be that I don't know what's going to happen at Man City. I think Arsenal or Liverpool are the more likely winners next season, and City could be like third place, possibly. I think for United, it's about how do we bridge the gap because these teams are not static either. We're rebuilding, but they're rebuilding as well. So it is a tricky one. So I don't think has Liverpool ever been the first game. Like for me, that would be, yeah, really ridiculous, isn't it? So I find it crazy how we turn into accountants of penny pinching each signing now. And so we look at the age of players instead of what's best for the team. No, I agree, Alex, that Man United, I think the reason why they're looking at younger players is because it's a bit more sustainable. And if you're trying to rebuild the team, what we've done effectively is that I think Manchester United, what you should do is you should have a first team where the players are going to be of the age range between, I suppose, like early 20s, late 20s. And it's good to have some experienced players as well. I don't mind having a couple of players that are a bit older because do need that balance. But I think what's happened was Man United's transfer windows were so bad that the players that were expected to be the experienced players, like Anthony, Rashford, Sancho, Anthony Martial, they were supposed to be the senior players at this point in time. We signed those players years ago, and they were supposed to be building up and developing over the next 4 or 5 years to be our core team, and also Greenwood as well. You could to put him in there, and all these players have left for different reasons. And effectively, what we've had is we've got to rebuild the team by buying. We've got to buy in the players for now, like Acuna and Buemo, but we've also got to buy the players for the future as well. So, yeah, when you mismanage a team, you suddenly have this kind of cut-off point where you look at the squad and think this is ridiculously bad. We got to do both here. So we're trying to sign players for the future and players for now, and that's why the transfer window at the moment seems to be difficult because it looks like we're trying to get like a Tonali is for now. I think Fernandez is probably for now, but definitely better in the future, and that's kind of the difficulty we got. That I don't think we're going to be I don't really care how much the players cost, to be honest. I think Manchester United, if it's run effectively, should be up there in terms of like Real Madrid, Liverpool's budget. Like we should have the same budget of those once we've been run properly for a few more years. And so, yeah, with the age of players, the only thing I care about with the age of players is probably don't sign players that are going to be nearly 30. If your team's not capable of winning a trophy now, it's not a way of building the team. And it's a bit disappointing. So what I might do, I might close the poll in a second, so then we can have a discussion about what people are thinking. I have no idea how the poll's going, by the way. No, I can't see the stream. Um, so you worry that all the big teams, United will have the least experienced manager, and say Carrick is a work in progress. Honestly, it's just I think with Michael Carrick, it's difficult to judge him because literally nothing's happened as well. So the problem is football is a business now. It's not about the football where we bought the best players because it's about winning trophies. And so let me just reread your comments. So football is a business now and not about football where we bought the best players and not because of money or age. Now I think with Man United, there's got to be a reason to buy players, isn't there? When you're looking at buying, if you're buying players like Yapstam or like Dwight York or like Robin van Persie, you're buying players that are going to be there to win the league next season. Like you buy Van Persie and Dwight York because you want to get score goals, you want to win the league next season. When you buy Wayne Rooney, you're probably buying a player that is good enough, but you're just buying him that's going to be good enough for like a decade. So it's the same way as when Man United bought Anthony Martial. They thought Anthony Martial would be a player that's going to be a Man United player for a very long time. And I think that's what sometimes you can get unlucky with those players, and it's really difficult as well. So how was I updating myself with player signings back in the days? No social media. I think sometimes you just woke up and found out you signed a player. As literally as that. And to be honest, before social media, if you go back to a certain time, it probably just there's probably I think social media has effectively replaced newspapers. When newspapers were running stories, the difference is going to be that with a newspaper, you kind of had a bit of a delay. So there's probably people finding out information, then you have to print it. There's a bit of a delay until you get it the next day, but it's pretty much the same thing. I think the way people talk on YouTube is probably no different from people looking at a headline in the newspaper, looking at the back pages, and going, "Actually, look, Man United looking at this." So I don't think things have changed too much. I think the information is just from a different source, but the conversations are exactly the same. So you have no idea who Man United's Big Ten signing is, but you voted too many. So if I was going to vote, say yeah, keep checking teletext. What is the break contracting clause in Carrot's contract? I'm not sure actually, Ollie. Since if anyone has any information, then yeah, feel free to post it in the chat. No, I think that with this one, hasn't Michael Carrick got a 2 years plus one contract? So I'd imagine with Michael Carrick that if you give him a 2 year contract, 3 year contract, I think there's definitely going to be. It won't be publicised, will it? Because it's a private contract between him and the club. But I think Manchester United would have an idea of what the club's capable of. If Michael Carrick gets 10th position in the league next season, he's going to be gone, isn't he? And if he gets second or third, he's almost certainly staying with the Champions League workload. So I'd imagine with this one that with Michael Carrick, they're probably just going to see how it goes. And if he does really well, he could stay a bit longer. If it doesn't go well, then I think Man United will be looking at anything. It's like any position on the pitch, isn't it? If Lamans carries on how he's going, he could be Man United's goalkeeper for a decade. If for whatever reason Lamans suddenly starts messing up, inconsistent for a long period of time, you start thinking, okay, maybe Vitek's going to come back and be number one. So things can change in football. I think at the moment, though, I'd imagine with Michael Carrick, I think he's going to be in charge for at least a couple of years, unless it goes disastrously wrong. So no, I think with this one, we'd have to see what happens. I'd say goals win games. Yeah, no, teletext and CFAX. Where I lived in Wales, sometimes sometimes the reception was quite bad. So if you tried to look at scores on teletext and CFAX, sometimes it would miss out numbers and characters. So yeah, it wasn't ideal. Wasn't ideal. Yeah, to be honest, actually, I think the Sun's still online. Like it still posts comments, and I still see like there's people quote it, but as well, no, no. Teletext is obviously I don't know. For people that know, I think there's actually an app you can get that replicates teletext for stories. So lots of game time. Yeah, lots of game time. It's going to be quite difficult though with the game time. That I think Vitek wants game time, but he wants first team game time in the high profile games. I think there's a way of keeping Vitek for another season. But I remember if you remember the stream last night, then one of the guests that was on then he's got some contacts that are coaches, and I think his brother's a season ticket holder at Ashton Gate as well. So he watches Bristol City every single season and every game. And the feedback from him, who also these people that have been working in and around coaches and have been in academies themselves. So some of the guests last night have actually been academy football players, and they have quite a lot of contacts in coaches as well. And what they're saying is like the feedback from people looking at Vitek is he is phenomenal. Like I know people are talking about Vitek and people might think it's over exaggerating, but they say it's like the first he's like one of the best players they've ever seen at the club and they're really happy with what he's doing. And to be honest, I think that Vitek he could right. He could stay at Bristol City if they want to try and keep him there. But I think he's at the stage where it's not that he's too good to be a backup goalkeeper, but he might prioritise being a first team goalkeeper because he might be looking at international football. So I think there's a lot of game time for Vitek, but I think Vitek wants to be the main guy. Cody. I think we might be able to keep him for one more season, but beyond that, I think it's going to be. I think Vitek's too good. So unfortunately, yeah, I think the struggle was real, Clive, with old school technology. It was literally impossible to try and get too much information. Why do I think PSG are doing really well? If not for youthfulness, vigor, unity in the team, then it's tricky, isn't it? I think sometimes you look at it and think with Manchester United, like when was our best team? Like if you look at when was our best football team, and it's a combination like you can have Galacticos, like you can have like an Mbappe, you can have Neymar and still win the league. But to sometimes to get the elite performances, I think you need some people that are also a bit selfless and a bit like team orientated players. Like you can have Cristiano Ronaldo and he will do what he does, but I think you need the people like Wayne Rooney that are maybe more mindful of how the team does. And I think you have to look at team players as well. So no, I think with Mbappe, that whatever reason is, I think Mbappe's probably a bit unfortunate that he left just as they kind of really kicked on. But I think what they've done here is they built a team, haven't they? That Funchi, you kind of hit the nail on the head here. That you build a team in football that you can have like the best player in the world in your team, but if you haven't got an effective 11 on the pitch that are playing for each other, it's never going to work too much. So in terms of the people we got, is Tonali a good team player? I think he is. I think Tchouameni certainly is as well. I think Elliot Anderson again is. These are players that do what the team requires. So I think they're all good signings. I think that's what Man United are looking at. So when you look at should Manchester United sign Elliot Anderson or is Wharton a good signing or is Belieber a good signing? I think it's about how well they work in a team environment. Are they going to be good signings for Manchester United? So I think there's a lot of people that would maybe work out a bit better than people realise. So if you want to vote in the poll, you've got about 30 seconds and I'll close it. Do I agree that negativity of fans is justified considering how the club's run? I'll say this for a fact that if you've got a view on how Manchester United should be run, then that's perfectly fine. If it disagrees, if it's different to my view, that's perfectly fine. That if you want to be optimistic about the future, that's perfectly fine as well. Everybody's going to have a different view on how the club's run. To be honest, I think Manchester United has been run very, very poorly for a long period of time, and maybe the Glazers might be the first time where it looks a bit like decisions are being made that might work out a bit better. So I want to be, I'm trying to be a bit positive because obviously I'm talking about Manchester United every day. Um, but I think it's definitely, yeah, if someone says to me they don't trust the owners, I would agree and say, yeah, why would you trust the owners? Like the owners have not done a lot of things for the benefit of Manchester United for a long time. So 100% agree. Big up to you, Sar, as well. Great to get you in the chat, Sar. Thank you so much for the super chat. For people that don't know as well, like Sar is a legend and he has got a very good gaming channel as well. So please check out Sar's gaming channel. I know Sar's been a bit unwell. I don't want to reveal like personal information, Sar, but I do try and check out your streams when you're streaming and hopefully you're feeling all good and hopefully you are, on the road to recovery as well. But big up to you, Sar. But to be honest, like negativity is understandable. Let's be realistic about this. We finished 15th a year ago, so if people were if people were accepting Manchester United and nothing but positivity, I think you got to look at the situation and say that things are definitely moving in the right direction, but they're not going to be ideal, are they? So, because a lot of people will agree with this. Say this is an example as well. Like Bruno Guimaraes will suit us better than Tonali. Was that Bruno Guimaraes? I never pronounce his name correctly. But Randy makes a good point. But Manchester United might be not looking at Bruno Guimaraes because they see it as a more, maybe they think a more sensible investment for the club might be to get someone like Tonali, who's a few years younger, and that might suit what they're trying to do as well. I mean, what Bruno Guimaraes can do for Newcastle, I think is probably still more important to Newcastle than Tonali's performance there. But there is a few issues as well with like slightly older, slight injury issues as well. So, no, I think it's difficult to for me, it's difficult to say. But I think Bruno Guimaraes would actually be a better quality player in Newcastle's team now. The question is going to be like, what would Bruno Guimaraes be doing? in Manchester United. I think Bruno Guimaraes for me is a bit like Roy Keane. He's the driving force. He's kind of the heartbeat in Newcastle. He's their most important player, but he does also he puts in so much distance on the pitch, like Bruno Guimaraes, that I'm wondering whether for the next few years can Bruno replicate what he's done the last 4 or 5 years in the next 4 or 5 years, and maybe that's the difficulty. But top quality player, 100%. So I think I ended the poll. Let me check the results. So let me go back to the stream and find the information. So I put a poll in saying what's the most likely situation because we're kind of guessing here. The most likely deal. So interestingly, at the moment, I was kind of actually expecting like Tonali to be quite high. I'm actually quite surprised that in terms of most likely deal, that too many gets 30% of the vote. Tonali only 9% more with 39%, and none 24%, Anderson 7%, because my guess, and again, but this is a guess as well. So you might see a lot of channels that talk about this deal's done, Man United's going to get too many, or secret reasons why we can get Anderson. I think at the moment, no one really knows. I just think too many sound that if you look at Real Madrid, too many's a world class player. I'm just trying to think, is there any examples in the past where a world class player that's got no injury issues or I just can't see a reason why Real Madrid would let him go. But if he'd have beaten the crap out of Valverde, I think they'd still be looking at ways to try and keep him in the team. And I think that got a bit exaggerated what happened. So I don't know. I think too many. I like the idea, and if too many join Man United, I would be really excited. But I just can't see how it happens. That's all I'm saying. I just can't see how too many leaves Real Madrid because he just feels like he's too good. Like not necessarily too good for Man United. I just feel like he's too good a player for Real Madrid to let go. It's like unless he wants to go, yeah, it's a bit like Cristiano Ronaldo and Wayne Rooney at Man United. Cristiano Ronaldo wanted to go and made it clear he wanted to go, whereas too many saying exactly the opposite. So I don't know. So I'm gonna have to wrap up in a second, but I'll just go for a few comments as well. I'm gonna try and keep streams to just over an hourish. Big up to you, Mr. B, as well. Thanks for getting involved in the chat last night as well. Good to get you on. There was a lot of guests on last night, so I might try and do a midweek calling show for people that are interested as well. Are we opting for sensible future signings over glory, urgency? I think so. I think we're looking for sensible signings overall. That's what I'm thinking. The idea of like buying players that can suddenly transform your team into winning a title that doesn't happen anyway. That I think a lot of people think that Eric Cantona was like like Eric Cantona was like a catalyst for sure, but Manchester United had put the building blocks in place before Cantona arrived. So you got to get all the other people in place. Like we had a good goalkeeper, we had good centre backs, and you build around those players. So it's a bit like any sort of team that you don't just suddenly get one player as well. And so you think our board and owners have finally opened their eyes and are actively working to get players in to improve your team. It looks a bit like we're doing sensible deals, but again, so not as good as San Lamens. I think it's when the thing about this one, if you remember if you watched last night, Funcho, I'm not sure if you watched last night, but towards the end, one of the guests on the channel last night was called JR. He's quite often a regular in the comments in evening streams, but JR, I found out last night, used to play. He was in goalkeeper academy. He has actually played for a team as well. I don't know if he wants personal information out there, but he did play for a team in I think they were a non-league team at the time, but quite close to getting to league status. But he was a goalkeeper, and he's talking about Vitek. But he originally he was more of a striker, but he played in goal, then got scouted by being as a goalkeeper. So weirdly, he played in a couple of academies as a goalkeeper, and then actually did play semi-professionally. But he was saying that for Vitek, he likes a lot of things that Vitek does, but there is a few. There's always going to be a few things to work on. I think the difference is going to be some of the things that Vitek's very good at, and some of the things that Lamans is very good at, they will be slightly different. So it depends on what you're looking at, and I think Vitek needs to work on a few different things to Lamans. They've probably got a slightly different skill set, but Vitek's probably slightly better as a sort of sweeper keeper. That's something that he seems to be slightly better at. And maybe shot stopping. I think Vitek is actually quite good as well. And but maybe it's like quite. I think some of the things that Lamans is good at in terms of like close shots as well and reacting quite quickly to close shots is something that Vitek needs to work on. But they're both young goalkeepers, so I think there's definitely some positives regarding that one. So no, I think I'll try and get JL back on, and I'll try and get a Newcastle fan on quite soon because of the news. But there's definitely a few people that are in around the channel that there seem. I do know a couple of people now that have been quite decent goalkeeping prospects when they were playing themselves, and it's interesting that the feedback they give regarding goalkeepers is that there's definitely loads of positives there, but these are not finished articles either. Could Bruno Guimaraes give us 2 better years than 5 decent years at Tonali? I would say for me that there's no point in me talking about what Tonali brings Manchester United because we don't know what they want. And it's the same way that people say, what does Tonali do at Newcastle? Forget what Tonali does at Newcastle. Forget what he did at Brescia or Milan. Manchester United will have a plan in mind, and it might be that they forget what Dorgu did. Like, what did Dorgu do at Lecce? And he might have a different role in the team. No one knows where Dorgu is going to play week in, week out. Maybe he's not going to have a fixed position either. Maybe Tonali's going to be a six in Manchester United's team, and maybe he's going to be protecting the back four. Maybe we're going to play with two eights behind Bruno Fernandes, and maybe we're looking at centre backs that can push up and maybe close that gap between midfield and defence in terms of keeping us more solid. I don't know. So I do think tonight's the most likely signing, and I do think he'll work out better than if you think Tonali will be disappointing, I think you might be surprised. That's what I'm saying. And I think if you think Edison's going to be disappointing, I think you might be surprised as well. I think the team might actually have a more organisation to it, and it might be put it this way. I think Man United are trying to do more of what PSG are doing with the recent era, where you get younger players in with a team in mind compared with what Manchester United used to do years ago, where we got the Galacticos and it's a massive mess. So I think just let's just hope for the best. I think at this point in time, but guys, I'm going to have to jump off and get some food and prepare for like there will be a stream about 1 p.m. today. There will be a late night stream tonight as well, just to let people know. So if depending on what area of the country you're in, if you're around about 9 p.m. tonight UK time, which is going to be roughly like 11 hours, but Jules will be hosting his Monday night show. There will be a guest on who was in the chat earlier as well, but I'll let you find out who that is later. But I'll be back live myself. Usually about 1 p.m. is going to be about the time, and that might be depending on breaking news as well. Also, big shout out to the moderators as well. Thank you for keeping the chat a very friendly, inviting place, and also everyone that's been contributing today with comments and questions. Again, I'm probably rambling quite a lot today, but there's a lot of news out there, and I think a lot of people have got valid opinions and a lot of skepticism about Manchester United because this is a massive window. Don't make any mistake about that. It could go one way or the other, couldn't it? I feel confident that we're taking proactive action, but there could be a lot of factors in play that we don't realise. And I would say as well, I'd be in the camp where I'd say I wouldn't rule out too many 100%, but I'd be very I'd be almost like too scared to wait and hope that that could happen as well. So I'm thinking with Devastas, I'm thinking get some players in before the World Cup. If we get two signings done before the World Cup in midfielders and we look at strengthening the rest of our team, maybe that's the key. This is my final point. Maybe if Manchester United get Fernandes, Edison, a left back, some backup striker, maybe that's the negotiation tool to get a Tchouaméni or get an Elliot Anderson in the club. Maybe you build the rest of the team and go, look, you're the final piece of the jigsaw. I just want to drop you into midfield, and then our team is good to go. And that could be the way of getting one of those top signings. So hopefully, whatever happens, we're rebuilding anyway, and it could be that could be quality. But thank you guys for watching. Appreciate you as well. Big up to you, Sar, for the super chat as well. Appreciate that. And we'll be live 1 p.m. today. Until then, guys, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the weather if it's nice where you are, and we'll speak in a few hours.